Hello there. In this video, really quickly, I'm going to solve this binomial cubic equation by using the sum of cubes formula. So a cubed plus b cubed equals the quantity a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. So a is equal to the principal cube root of the first term, that would be x in this term, and b would be equal to principal cube root of 8, which is 2. So we set it up as x plus 2 times a squared would be x squared minus ab would be, we'll write it as 2x, and then plus b squared, which is 4. Now when I use my zero product property, I'm going to go ahead and set this first term, and you can just see it's x equals -2 for my first term, and then we'll use the quadratic formula. So really quickly, I'll set it up. Okay, so really quickly, let's go ahead and solve this. That would be 1 plus or minus I root 3, and that is my second set of solution. And we are okay, done. So let's go ahead now and give a difference of cubes a try for this video. So again, a will be the principal cube root of the first term, which will be 3x, and then b will be equal to 1. So we get 3x minus 1 times a squared would be 9x squared, and then plus a 3x times 1, which is just 3x, plus 1 squared, which is 1. So once again, this first term turns out to be pretty trivial to solve. We add 1, we divide by 3, and we get x equals 1/3. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and set up the quadratic formula. Okay, so let's go ahead and take -3. -27 will turn out to be -3 plus or minus, we get 3I root 3 over 18. And then -1 plus or minus I root 3. Hello there. 6. In this video, I really want to quickly derive a formula for what the solution set would be from the quadratic that is the secondary quadratic from factoring a sum or difference of squares. So really quickly, a cubed plus b cubed is plus or minus a plus or minus b. The pluses or minus associate with each other, times the quantity a squared minus plus ab plus b squared. So if this is plus, this will be minus. If this is minus, this will be plus. So really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and set up my quadratic formula with the terms as they are written in this quadratic. Okay, really quickly in simplifying, the negative of negative is positive, but negative of positive, this will just reverse the plus minus. And then really quickly, let's go ahead and simplify that radical to be, then one of these a's along with those a's will cancel. So we will get, and that is our general formula, noticing that the plus or minus here associates with the plus or minus here. Thanks for watching. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go over a little weird example of sum of cubes. I'm going to go ahead and set up a to be equal to the cube root of 2x, and then a or b will be the cube root of 4. And I'm actually going to rewrite this as cube root of 2 squared. So really quickly, I'll write out my sum of cubes. So one thing to notice is that this middle term became 2 cubed, so I could simplify that down to 2. Let's go ahead and solve for each term individually. All right, so our first solution, we get negative cube root of 2. And then let's go ahead and use the quadratic formula for the second term. So if we go ahead and simplify that, we get a funny looking solution of 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus the cube root of 32 all over the cube root of 2. Now you could probably do more with this. The 1 minus cube root of 32 will be negative inside a square root, so you'll still get complex solutions out of this, and then you could probably rationalize the denominator, but I'm going to leave that up to you. Thanks for watching. Hello there. I'm going to solve this cubic trinomial. The first thing I'm going to do is notice that a 7x can be factored out. That leaves me with 5x squared plus 6x plus 1 equals 0, and 7x can be set equal to 0, and that just gives us x equals 0 as a solution. Now we have a quadratic. Do you want to factor? Do you want to complete the square, or do you want to use quadratic formula? I'm going to go ahead and use quadratic formula. That'd be -6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 5 times 1 all over 2 times 5. 6 squared would be 36 minus 20 would be 16. So that'd be -6 plus or minus 4 over 10. -6 minus 4, -10. So we get -1 as a solution. And then we get -6 plus 4 is -2 over 10. That's -1/5 as a solution, and we are done. Hello there. In this video, really quickly, I'm going to go over the factor by grouping technique. So I'm going to notice that these two and these two can be grouped together. I'm going to factor out their greatest common factor. That'd be x squared, leaving me x minus 2. And then here we can factor out a 2, which would leave me x minus 2. Now we have this factor and this factor that can be factored out, leaving me a remainder of x squared plus 2 equals 0. From here, how we solve it is really up to you. This would just be simple algebra, x equals 0. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use algebra on the second factor of x squared plus 2. So that means subtracting 2x squared equals negative 2. And I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I'm going to get x equals plus or minus. It's going to be complex I times the root 2. And those are our solutions. Let's go over another factor by grouping technique for solving this cubic. We got this first factor. The greatest common factor is 3x squared. That leaves us x minus 1. Now be careful, we're going to put a minus, but the greatest common factor should be a negative 6. That way we're left with an x minus 1. That gives us the special factor that we can get out, which is x minus 1. We get 3x squared minus 6 as the remainder. So x minus 1 equals 0, pardon me. We get x equals 1 as a solution. And then this one I usually like to just do simple algebra for. We add 6, we get 3x squared equal to 6, divide by 3, x squared equals 2, and then x will equal plus or minus root 2. So we've got nothing but real solutions for this cube. Hello there. In this, we know how to solve this quadratic by using factoring or quadratic formula. But what happens if we take that exponent of 2 and make it an exponent of 3? Well, I'm going to start by still using my diamond math, 5 and negative 6. My factors would be negative 5, negative 1. And I'm going to write it this time out as x cubed minus x minus 5x plus 5 equals 0. And now we'll resort to factoring by grouping. I get an x out of here, so I get x squared minus 1 there, and then minus 5 times x minus 1. Now, we don't quite have factoring by grouping yet. We'll use difference of squares on this. X times x minus 1 times x plus 1 minus 5 times x minus 1 equals 0. Next, we'll factor our greatest common factor. That'd be x minus 1. I'm going to go ahead and factor this back in. We're going to get x squared plus x minus 5 as the remainder. And now we can get x equals 1 out of here. And I'm going to go ahead and solve another cubic with the same method I did last time. Now, the purpose of this method is to tell me which factors here I can split up so I can set up factor by grouping, okay? Now we get an x squared that comes out of here, and we get x minus 1. From here, we don't get an x, but we do get a minus 1, which would make this x squared minus 1 equals 0. Now, like in the last video, we're going to go ahead and set up with difference of squares. So we get x squared times x minus 1 minus 1 times x minus 1 times x plus 1 equals 0. And so let's take out our common factor of x minus 1. X minus 1 times the quantity x squared. We get minus x, because we're going to distribute this back in, minus 1 equals 0. And we get x equals 1, and we get the golden ratio and its conjugate